This week, I had a great conversation with Dr. Norrine Russell, and we talked about the 2E kid or person, the twice exceptional person or child. Most of the children are identified as 2E, and 2E means twice exceptional is that they've been identified as gifted and they have a learning disability or a neurodivergent diagnosis, so ADHD, autism, dyslexia, or whatnot. So if you're identified as gifted and you have ADHD, you're 2E, or ADHD and autism, 2E, or even with dyslexia. Or if you're ADHD and autistic with like me, then it's 3E. But anyways, numbers doesn't mean you're better or worse than anyone. It's just, I'm just explaining it. Now, the thing is we got to make sure we understand is that the term gifted that we're referring to in this conversation is as per the academic system, meaning in the psychological and academic sense means that someone who falls in the top 1 to 2 percentile of intellectual functioning. Okay, and they're referring specifically to reasoning and problem-solving abilities, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the person's more advanced or skilled in all intellectual areas. It's just about how the brain processes information differently and faster than most people. It's not about being smarter or better than others. It's just the way, it's another brain wiring thing where it's a little more intellectually, they can process information a lot faster. And that's like I tell my kids, just because you're identified gifted doesn't mean you're smarter or better than anyone else. It just means your ability to process information is a lot more heightened and faster, and that's about it. Now, the thing is with the 2E or the gifted kids is they're very intellectually advanced in certain areas, in subjects, but they're not so much in other areas. So that there's a difference there of intellectual giftedness and just regular intellectual levels. And now, the reason I wanted her to talk to us about it, because I can just see with my girls that the gifted brain is way more intellectually advanced than their chronological age than their emotional maturity. So the emotional maturity is their chronological age, while their intellectual maturity is a little more 2, 3, 4 years further down. And the brain knows that difference. Intellectually, they should have control of their emotions. Emotionally, they know they can't have control of their intellect. And that creates some emotional dysregulation as well. So it's not only ADHD. Now let's throw ADHD into there, where we feel the emotions a lot more intensely and immensely and raw and impulsively. It definitely amplifies the emotional challenges. Okay, so the other thing that really makes a 2E kid feel weird is that they feel advanced in some areas and they're really struggling in other areas, and they feel pretty stupid that they can't figure that out. But that's just the way the brain and their body is naturally. And there's nothing wrong with that discrepancy, okay? Just because the kids are so smart, but I can't believe he did something so silly, it's very harmful to their self-understanding. Just because they got a more advanced intellect or they're able to process information a lot quicker, them understanding their emotions and their day-to-day development is not there. So us assuming or thinking that their intellect gives them the ability to understand their emotions at a teenage years or whatever, they still have to develop physical, body has to mature. The emotional maturity has to happen as well, but that goes on like a normal process. And just because the intellectual ability is there doesn't mean that their emotional abilities have been reached as well. And that's where a lot of people misunderstand or has this myth that smart means mature. And this is one of the big reasons I want to have this conversation. Just because they're smart doesn't mean they're mature emotionally or life-wise. Like seriously, think about it. A 15, 12-year-old, 17, 18-year-old kid, as much as they have the intellectual abilities to figure this stuff out, the emotional maturity is not there for them to handle it. And it's the communication between the intellectual mind and the emotional mind That's the discrepancy, and that's where they have the challenge. So just because you're gifted doesn't automatically mean that they can manage their emotions or social situations. They have to learn that at the same rate as everyone else of their chronicle age. Now, yes, ADHD brains, there's discussion, there's research saying that their ADHD brain kids are about 2 to 3 years behind emotional and social maturity. So we got that age gap kind of increases again. And the brain knows there's something going wrong, doesn't know what to do with it. And since the kids are their age, the emotional regulation is not there. They need to be taught. So we parents, and I'll admit to this, and I did it the other night, okay? We often mistake that because it happened the other night. Let me start over again. It happened the other night, and I made the mistake again, expecting advanced emotional skills from my 12-year-old daughter who is gifted because she should figure it out. She's smart. And I fell into that trap. As much as I know it, I get fallen in the trap. And we need to understand that a child's brain, so smart but does not help them, okay? So if you understand that your child's brain is processing intellectually faster, but you know that the emotional development follows a typical timeline, that can help you with your communication with your kids, and especially with your expectations of your kids in their emotional development, in their social development. Now, the other thing too is I really like the fact that she mentioned this, and I like this because I've seen this trend over the last 15, 20 years where parents are keeping their kids too busy. They're forcing their kids to concentrate too much on school, do too much homework, play 3-4 sports. The problem I had with that is the kids were never allowed to be kids. They're always on the go. They always had something to do. They couldn't just sit and relax and be kids and to play, okay? Now, Dr. Norrine had a couple great recommendations for people or a parent like you. If you're a parent with a 2E child, or even gifted, it's the same thing. Just let your kids be kids. They're a 12-year-old. Even though they might be thinking intellectually at an 18, 19, 20-year-old level, they're still a 12-year-old kid. They need to play. They need to just be kids. They're allowed to make silly mistakes so they can learn from it. They can just be silly. Just let them be. Let the children be children. And at the same time, as we cannot rely on them to figure out their own social, emotional development, we still have to be there as parents to explain to them and coach them and help them develop emotionally and socially. And the only one of the ways they can do that is to play with others. Let them play as kids and figure stuff out. So the biggest challenge that I saw all these years with my 2 daughters was one thing we didn't do at the beginning, but now we're doing so, is we were not creating enough space for their intellectual curiosity and also their emotional growth. We really concentrate a lot more on the intellectual curiosity than their emotional growth because, you know what, I'm going to tell you, I assumed they were figuring it out on their own. And thinking back as being gifted as a kid, yeah, I wasn't figuring it out on their own. I was actually watching and observing, and I've really created, or I started behaving maladaptive practice based on my environment, okay? So when you're having a challenge, or this is the big thing I have, arguing with your gifted child is mentally exhausting because it is an adult conversation. As long as we're talking about facts or figures or things that's happened. But if we're now starting to have a conversation, a fight about their understanding of emotions and societal integrations or interactions, we can't make the assumptions that they're thinking like an 18-year-old kid when they're 12, even though intellectually, factually, they're talking at an 18-year-old level. We have to remember that they're still a kid, and to treat them as such, especially around emotional regulation, talking about emotions and societal challenges. Just saying, hey, you know what, sooner or later you're going to figure it out, just go this, try that. That's an adult recommendation. They need to hear it in a different way and in a different sense. And having that understanding will definitely improve your relationship with your 2E kid. But even you as a 2E adult, you get to understand the differences too. Like for me, I was never really, I found out a lot later in life that I was identified gifted. And that just made a lot of sense to me. Like for me with my ADHD, things have to be intellectually stimulating for me to go, and not just interesting. It has to be intellectually stimulating as well. And these 2E kids need that as well. But at the same time, they need to be kids as well. So I'd like to know what your biggest insights was from the conversation with Dr. Norrine Russell. If you can email me at André@theimpulsivethinker.com, it'd be greatly appreciated, and I would love to hear some 2E stories. Take care.